Hello everyone, I'm Andrew from Mission 231 and Running with Heart, and currently in the middle of training and preparing for the Sonder Monster 231 kilometers on the Lara Pinta Trail from Mount Sonder into Alice Springs, held in May 2022. Exciting news, the entries open next Friday the 1st of October, and really pumped that they're finally opening and I can enter and make it that little bit more official that the event is on next year and continue pushing towards it. I thought, being that the entries are opening in less than a week's time, and the fact that I've been on Mission 231 and training for the Sonder Monster now for 6 months, I thought it was a timely chance to look back at the past 6 months, where it started, what's happened in between, and where we're currently at and where we're heading in training. So it all started when I look back 6 months ago. It was the good old 6 foot track marathon, which I was doing for the very first time. And it was where I contemplated stepping away from running and retiring from running, particularly marathons and ultra running, because of the experience that I was having out there on what I classed at the time unrunnable hills, mountains. And I would say it wasn't pleasant when I think back at it, but it was enjoyable, if that makes sense. I think at the time I was dealing with my anxiety. I was fighting it, being out there in the middle of nowhere. It was my first ultra since developing the anxiety disorder 2 years ago, and I was way outside my comfort zone. And so during those mountains, it just kept rising above me and kept rolling one after the other. You know, you go into a sort of a bad place, the pain cave, so to speak, and the head goes to a bad place, and you've really got to stay positive out there. And that is something I'm obviously working on with the Sonder Monster coming up as well. The mental strength, I spoke about that a couple of podcasts ago. Worth going back to have a listen to that 2 weeks ago. So I might just read a bit of that 6 foot track journal. I believe I read it in episode 1 of the Running with Heart podcast, but just going to go back a few things so we get where I was at the time. And after this race, I took 4 weeks off to think about my running and pray about it and see which direction God wanted me heading in. And the Sonder Monster, which was at the back of my mind since late last year, really sort of got lit up and the light shone upon it, and I made the commitment. So these are in the mountains of the 6 foot track marathon, heading from Katoomba, or the Explorers Street near Katoomba, to Jenolan Caves. We're going to pick the race up at the 31 kilometre mark. At 31 kilometres, I've got a Sitter Surf to go. To think I've run that in under an hour is amazing at this point. I'm running more as there are more runnable sections. I keep an eye on my heart rate. If it hits 157 to 160, I walk. I let it drop. Then I run again. At 35 kilometres, I've got a 10 kilometre race left. The worst of the climb is behind me. The time is 4 hours 20. I've got 70 minutes. That's 7 minutes per kilometre. It's doable. Rolling inclines follow, which is still tough after what we've just climbed, but most are runnable. There's 2 big climbs in the State Forest section, and on both of these I'm forced to walk with hands on thighs. My posture is terrible walking up the hills. My lower back feels like it may cramp. I remember this section of the race, and it was really, really tough. And again, my head wasn't in the right spot at this point. You wanted to get to the finish line. I remember not thinking you'd been not tricked into it, but that the mountains were bigger than I expected. Perhaps should have done more research, I guess, into the map and the layout of the land. Knew they were big, but yeah, didn't expect. I thought they were going to be runnable. I'd done a lot of hill work in the training leading into it, so I think probably dirty on myself that I wasn't running them. And I think looking back too, probably dirty on myself knowing that physically I could have run them, and probably physically at the time I knew I could have run them, but it was my head, my anxiety battle in my head that was probably stopping me running them. So I go through an aid station at 39 kilometres, top up my bladder and my water bottles. I've got the bladder in the back of the pack. I've got the water bottles in the front. I get water thrown over me just after 40 Ks. Really enjoyed the single track down in Jenolan Caves. Big drop on one side, rocky, uneven, really fun though. I've got written here, the descent begins a very rocky, rough single track. A cliff wall on one side and a sheer rocky drop on the other side to the valley floor 100 plus metres below. I run this section safely but with some downhill speed. I can sense and hear the finish line as I run onto the boardwalk and run the final descent into Jenolan village. Feeling comfortable, and I cross the finish line in 5 hours, 27 and 11 seconds. I think the two things to take away here now, I think back at the race, I think of how I felt in the race in those last half of the race where the mountains rise above me and I was outside the comfort zone, so to speak. And not that it's bad memories, but you think of the struggle and the toughness and how hard it was. And then I read that section. I cross the finish line feeling comfortable in a time of 5:27:11. The goal was 5:30 to 6. 5 hours 30 to 6 hours. And we come in at 5 hours 27. Craig came in 10 minutes later. But feeling comfortable, that's the key there. And I remember crossing the line going, yep, that's done. Like, once I finished, it was like, yeah, that was no big deal. Yet while I was out there, it was a big deal. It was tough. It was a struggle. And I really look back at it now and go, it was all in my head. And so from that, I then debriefed and discussed with my wife, Monique, where my running should be going. And, this is some of the stuff from that conversation. Recalling from the race, at 30 kilometres, I retired from ultra running. At 32 kilometres, I was going to keep running. At 35 kilometres, I retired again. I don't have time to train to the standard I want to be able to run in events like today. I don't want to do events you can't finish by walking. Sorry, that you can finish by walking, or events that force you to walk because the inclines are so crazy. So I read that and I go, okay, well, I've signed up for the Sonder Monster, which is 231 kilometres. This was 45 kilometres. What am I doing? And I'll be honest, that's a question that probably pops in my head at least once a week at the moment. And I'm probably about 26 weeks into my program. And my question, so how did I go from being in the mountains of the 6-foot track marathon, giving up, retiring from running, to signing up for the Sonder Monster and training for it with Mission 231? We're talking, I think, 7 times the distance. The elevation is probably 7 times the elevation. What happened there in that 4 weeks time, in that 4-week period where I've gone from, I'm retiring, I don't have time to train, yet I've trained the most consistently I've probably ever trained in the last 26 weeks. And I think part of it, there's probably 2 parts to it. One is the cause. The Heart Foundation, Running with Heart, is a cause that I'm so passionate about and I believe so strongly in. And that's my why. If I can make a difference just to one person in terms of their health, if I can make one difference to the statistic of heart disease, I'm happy. Obviously, I'd like to make a huge difference and affect the lives and health of many people. But if I can just make one person's life different, I see that as a success. So having the strong why makes it different. For 6-foot track marathon, that was me running the race. It wasn't for the Heart Foundation. It wasn't for a cause. It was me doing a race that I wanted to do. But at the same time, and this is where the second part of it comes into it, with the Sonder Monster, the 6-foot was again another step in my anxiety journey. From not being able to get out the door and run, to slowly increasing the distance, be able to go out and run with my running buddies at various times, to doing a marathon on my own in Orange in March 2020, before COVID hit, the week before COVID hit actually, to then stepping up to doing a trail run, which was 40, it's called the marathon, it's an ultra marathon, it's 45 kilometers. It's technically an ultra marathon because it's 3 kilometers longer than the marathon distance. But it's, again, a step trying to rediscover myself, to refine myself, the overcomer, not the overthinker, to conquer, to beat my anxiety. And so that was all part of the journey. And I believe I write here. So if I want to continue moving forward on my journey, conquering my anxiety and becoming an overcomer, perhaps I need to pursue ultras. But what is the point in doing that if when in the moment I'm not going to push myself? I'm going to take the comfort option. It's almost like a double-edged sword. I can't be too critical though. I'm still improving, still moving forward. 12 months ago, it was a big deal for me to line up at the start line of the marathon again. That was the one in Orange. That day, I ran through the countryside of Orange within myself, but enough to get a personal best. 12 months on today, I ran 45 kilometres through the wilderness, remote countryside. That's a huge step and one I'm very proud of, regardless of where I go to from here. And I think that's the thing with the Sonder Monster. I think doing the 6 Foot Track Marathon 6 months ago, I won't call it my light bulb moment, but it was the opportunity that I guess registered in my head, like, okay, yes, you've done a marathon, tick that box, since the anxiety. You've done an ultra marathon through the wilderness, remote countryside, yeah, that's good, tick the box. But in both those instances, you held yourself back. You're still being fake, so to speak. You're not being your true self. You're not pushing yourself to your absolute limit. And that's what I'm looking for in my journey to the Sonder Monster. And so to be able to rediscover myself, the part of myself I'm looking for that is willing to push and to go into that stage of discomfort and find my absolute limit, I knew I had to sign up for something big. I think I knew after doing the 12-hour event in December last year where we ran for 12 hours, I was crook in the middle of it and covered 78 Ks. 100 kilometres was in reach that day. And I know it's doable. For me to really take myself outside my comfort zone, that's probably what it comes back to. I had to sign up for something massive and epic. And the Sonder Monster, which had been simmering there in the back of my mind after reading about it late last year, it was the perfect option. And it was also the perfect option to put a spotlight on what I'm doing to attract that attention so I can put it all onto the Heart Foundation. The Sonder Monster Mission 231 isn't about me. It's about me completing it for the Heart Foundation. It's about me completing it and training for it to be able to create awareness of heart disease and the fact that it is still the #1 killer disease here in Australia. And it's time for change. It's time for that statistic to change. And if I can create awareness and if I can help people identify the risk factors of heart disease and consider them and what they need to change in their lifestyle to make a difference to the risk factors, to reduce their risk, and in doing so reduce the statistic of heart disease in Australia, again, it's a success. And so that's where it began 6 months ago, from myself battling my mind, I guess, and the mountains of the 6 Foot Track Marathon, to taking 4 weeks off completely, to think about whether I really wanted to step away from running, whether I wanted to step away from ultra marathons and just focus on short stuff. And I think I knew in myself that that wasn't me. Again, it was the comfort option. I had to rediscover myself and get myself outside my comfort zone, which I used to enjoy so much. And so made the commitment to the Sonder Monster and began training in earnest in April, and started there. Every 3 weeks I would increase the long run, the mission, so to speak. And so I think my first one was 3 hours, and then 3 weeks later that became 3.5 hours, to the most recent one being in late August, 5-6 weeks ago, I think it was, and that was an 8-hour run. And again, run, walk, not running the entire thing, hiking, and it's getting the distance, it's getting the time on the feet, preparing for what is going to come. With the Sonder Monster, we're talking 231 kilometers in under 60 hours. That's, if you don't do it in under 60 hours, you don't complete the race. So it's all about preparing for that. And so that's how I did over the first 5.5 months. Was you'd have your long trail run every other week, but every third week you go extra long, and you'd increase that extra long run every 3 weeks. And so, you know, it went from 3.5 to 4 to 5 to 6, and then jumped to 8. And so after that 8-hour run, feeling really good, I found I didn't have the mental confidence that I would have thought I would have got from 19 weeks of hard training and completing an 8-hour run. I felt I was still short of where I wanted to be at that point in time. I had planned to do a 100-kilometer event / training run in September, which hasn't happened because I hurt my ankle the week after the 8-hour run. But even after the 8-hour run, I didn't think I was in a place where I could do that 100 Ks yet. Whether that was a mental thing, I'm not sure. But the week after the 8 hours, I rolled my ankle on a training run at the very start of a training run, and that sidelined me for 2 weeks. And so just in the last 2 weeks, starting to return to running and back into a full program, which is going really well. This week so far, the week just gone, still doing my rehab exercise on the balance board and ankle mobility just to strengthen the tendons and the ligaments in the right ankle. But yeah, did a recovery run with my first sprint session at the end of it. My first sprint session in a long time. It's been that long I couldn't actually tell you when I last did a sprint session, especially at the end of an hour run. And I really enjoyed that again, taking myself outside my comfort zone, pushing myself to my limit. Really enjoyed that. That was 9 Ks covered that day. Backed it up the following day with a 12.5 K endurance run, which was, I believe, 90 minutes. And then had the day off on Thursday. I felt my body was tired. I felt the ankle was hurting a bit. And then moved my Thursday session to Friday, which was tempo intervals. And that was 4 by 8 minute tempo runs, which I was really pleased with the pace I was able to maintain with that. The idea was consistency, and I was within about 10 seconds on each of those 8 minute intervals. In terms of my pace, that is 10 seconds pace per kilometre. I think I was around 5 minutes to 5:10 from memory. I don't have that written down. During the 6 months as well, obviously the focus has been on creating the awareness of the Heart Foundation and raising funds for the Heart Foundation. I'm pleased to say at this point in time, after 6 months, we've raised $2,720 right at this moment, and that's being on Saturday, the 25th of September. And in that, which is really pleasing, we've held two particular fundraising events, the 231 skipping challenge and the 231 walking challenge. So for the skipping challenge, that required a $20 donation. You're committing to skipping 231 skips 3 times a week for 4 consecutive weeks. And so far, we've had 46 people take part in that challenge. That challenge is open right through until May next year, so you can sign up at any time, and the details are in the show notes. But 46 people have taken up the skipping challenge, and that's just awesome. When I set out to do that skipping challenge, my goal was 10 to 15 people. I thought if I got 10 to 15 people skipping, that would be unreal, awesome, and a great start. And it's been really good, the feedback from the skipping. The people have already completed it. Some people have said that they've enjoyed it so much, they're going to keep it in their fitness routine now. So it's going to be a regular fitness activity they do. So that's fantastic. The idea of the first 2 challenges, the skipping and the walking, is to increase people's physical activity level, because up to 80% of Australians don't get enough physical activity each and every day of the week. So that was the idea of bringing the skipping in, and just something simple. So not asking for a commitment to every single day. By making small changes, it's easy to make a big overall change. And so that was why it was 3 times a week. The walking one is quite similar, committing to walking for 23.1 minutes, 3 times a week as well for 4 consecutive weeks. And so far we've got 8 people signed up for that. And we've had that going for 2 weeks now. So we've probably got a couple of people halfway through that challenge. Again, you can sign up at any time for that one, $20 donation. On completion of both the skipping and the walking challenge, you also get yourself a Heart Foundation Momento. So if you're keen to increase your physical activity levels and take part and also make a difference to the Heart Foundation, because all the money goes to the Heart Foundation, please hit the link below and sign up. And just put 231 skipping in the message when you donate the $20, or 231 walking. And thank you, a big thank you to everyone who's signed up for that. So when you look at those numbers, we've got 54 people who have been doing that little bit of extra exercise that maybe they weren't doing beforehand. 54 people. So it's just awesome to make that, again, as I talk about, just small changes, small differences if I can make. I'm a single person. I know I can't change the entire world. But if I can change someone's life or a couple of people's lives, it's excellent. It's a success. I also started during the 6 months of my training towards Sonder Monster. I started a new running journal. I've always kept a running journal since my sitter surf days and my entry into the half marathon and marathon days. And this new journal I started was different in the sense it was blank pages. I've always had one which has had a layout or lines or columns or tables. This one just complete blank pages. And at the time I was really hesitant about doing it on a blank page journal, and that might sound a bit weird, just how I am. But when I actually sat down and spent some time just looking at it and staring at it and looking at the pages, I thought, this is perfect. This is ideal, because what I've entered into with the Sonder Monster, it's a blank page. I'm looking at creating a new me in a sense, or the old me. And so and I'm starting from scratch. And this is a message I want to share that I wrote in the front page of the journal as we enter into the Sonder Monster program. I open up this new running journal to find that there are no lines, like my previous journals. I'm horrified. How can I write in it if there are no lines? Then I realise that it is probably fitting that there are no lines, because as I start this journal, my running is starting a new journey. And ahead of me are blank pages, to some extent the unknown. Running with Heart Mission 231 has begun. My quest to run the entire Larapinta Trail in the Northern Territory, Australia. I'll have less than 60 hours to complete it. It will be part of the Westmac Monster Running Festival, the 231 kilometre event, the Sonder Monster. Can I do it? Do I have what it takes? I honestly don't know, and that's what excites me. That's a challenge, and once again, to help try and make a difference to the heart disease statistics in Australia. It's also about fighting my own monsters, anxiety, to continue on my journey from overthinker to rediscovering myself as an overcomer. New training, new goals, blank pages. Time to get creative as I pursue a new challenge. Yep, I think this blank page journal will be ideal. It's time to run with heart. And I think that sums up really well in the journey I'm on. With my approach to the Sonder Monster, it's all unknown to me. I've never trained for an event this big. Yes, I've done Big Red Run before with Craig back in 2016, would you believe, 5 and a bit years ago. And that was 250 kilometres over 5 days, or 6 days actually. And so the longest I've run in a single event would be a training run of 60 Ks. I guess if you include the 12-hour last year for Team Keeley, as I said, that was 12 hours and I did 78. But so I've never trained specifically for an ultra marathon event this big. And again, I'll be honest, yes, I have doubts, and I should have doubts. If you're not going into an event asking yourself, do you have what it takes? You're probably doing the wrong thing. It's not an event that's challenging yourself as a person. And again, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that challenge as a person. And so I've been watching, some of the epic and elite ultra running events that have happened over the last 6 months on other parts of the world where they can happen with COVID. Mainly the Western States, the pinnacle of ultra running, and UTMB in France more recently. And you see these elite runners tackling this 100 miles, so we're talking 166 Ks course. And you see them, some of them dropping out and some struggling and well and truly in the pain cave, and some push on, some can't. And I have doubts, and I look, well, if they can't do 160 Ks, how can I do 231 Ks? They're elite runners, they're professional runners, and they've done these distances before. And so, you do have the doubts, the serious doubts about being able to complete it. But then I realise that it's all relative. I've done enough events to know that sometimes you have a bad day. And so what I'm seeing then, it's a bad day. It's a different course as well. I've just got to make sure that I'm in my best possible physical shape, my best possible mental shape and mental health to give it my best shot, and to see if I can get myself to the end of the Sonder Monster 231 kilometres. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be tough. I'm going to learn things about myself. Running does that to you. Ultra running does that to you. Marathons do that to you. You discover parts of yourself that you didn't know exist. Discover things about yourself that you didn't know exist. And it really is. They say ultra running is a test of human endurance, and it certainly is. It's also a learning curve. So I think the blank pages in my new journal have been really good. A chance for me to scribble, a chance for me to sketch and draw, which I don't do real well. But again, it's just being creative and relaxing me and just staying focused on the journey that is lying ahead. And the other thing I've done differently in the last 6 months when they're training, when I talk about new training approach, and that is I'm running more than I have before, less days off during the week, less running days off during the week, and so far it hasn't been a bad thing. I've really enjoyed it, and I think it's been really good for my headspace. And it's something I noticed in the 3 weeks or 2 to 3 weeks I had off from running after hurting my ankle, how much my headspace needed the consistent, regular running. And so I've really enjoyed the extra running, the extra distances I've been doing. And what I'm looking at doing now, I look back at the first 20 or so weeks up until the injury, basically, and it's been good. It's been good for the endurance side of it. It's been good getting time on feet. But again, it hasn't been hard enough. It hasn't been specific enough in terms of getting myself into the pain cave. Yes, I'm completing the distances. I'm completing the time. But it's been comfortable, and I've got to be aware of that. I've got to make sure I'm taking myself outside my comfort zone. Done a few night runs in there, which again, not something I've done previously, and really enjoyed them, and really tough, really different. But the reality is I'm facing 2 full nights of running the Sonder Monster. It starts at 9 a.m. in the morning on the Friday in May, the third Friday in May, and you have 60 hours. So you're looking at, it'll be 9 o'clock Sunday night. So there's 2 full nights of running I've got to get used to as well. But I've got to make sure that, yes, I'm training for the Sonder Monster. Yes, I'm training for an ultra marathon. Yes, I'm training for a distance I've never done before. I've got to make sure, though, that I'm not just doing the training to tick boxes. I've got to make sure that each of those training sessions is high quality, hard. I should rephrase that. Not every training session has to be hard. Okay, 80% should be easy. 20% needs to be hard. By hard, I mean I've got to make sure that I have the sessions where I'm uncomfortable, where it's tough, where my chest is tight, where my chest is heavy, where my legs are like jelly. I need sessions like that. It's pointless doing sessions and runs that keep me comfortable all the time, where I do and go, oh yeah, cool, I did 4 hours, no worries. Or I did 1 hour, excellent, done. I've got to take myself outside my comfort zone also in the training. So that's something I'm working on as well. The other thing I've done as well, which I'm now on the fence with, is time versus distance in training. I've always been a runner before, where I've done distance. When I've trained for my marathon, you're going out for a long run of 32 kilometers. You're going out for a long run of 37 kilometers. Where for the first 24 weeks of this training program, I've done time. It's a 3-hour run. It's a 1 hour run. It's a 40-minute run. It's a 30-minute weight session. And as I said, I'm on the fence now. It's worked really well. It's worked really well. But I guess my fear is the time factor making me take it easier? Am I not pushing myself as hard because I'm not doing 15 kilometers? And so you're not pushing, I want to get the 15 kilometers done in this amount of time. You have that time goal. And so what I've done in endurance runs for the last couple of weeks is when I've gone out for my 90-minute run or my 60-minute run, I've given myself a distance goal, a pace goal. And again, you've got to make sure you're not overworking and over pushing yourself. And I guess that's the advantage of the time is, you can actually make sure you're more consistently paced through that 90 minutes or 3 hours or 4 hours, where sometimes when you're doing the distance, so say I've got a 37k run, you're like, oh, but I've only got 3 hours. So you push yourself really hard to get it done in that time. Where when you know you're going out for a 3-hour run, you've got 3 hours. It doesn't matter how fast, how slow you go. You're out there for 3 hours regardless. So yeah, look, it's a tough one, and I'm just debating it at the moment. It's worked well this week, giving myself, as I said, that distant goal. So when I've gone out for the 90-minute run, I've said, okay, I want to cover 13 k's in this time, and I've made sure that's a pace that is comfortable or suitable to that training session. Okay, it's meant to be an easier session, where it's meant to be a harder one. You go, okay, 14, 15 k's maybe. I hope that makes sense. Probably a bit of rambling there, but yeah, just trying to explain the time versus distance scenario that's going on in my head. That's the arguments in my head and the thoughts that go through my head sometimes. I think that's covered everything so far. Looking ahead to the training, so the training I've done for the first 6 months of the program has been sort of programmed around 100k distance. And as I said, my plan had been to do 100k's before this point in time by September, and that didn't happen because of the ankle. So hopefully I'll cross that off before the end of the year. But I also can't afford, we're talking about 35 weeks remaining, I think. I can't afford to really stick on a 100k program till the end of the year until I get the 100k done. So what I'm looking at now is, after completing what I'm saying is my foundation stage, that first 20 or so weeks before the injury, where I was getting myself ready for the 100k, that's my foundation stage. And so now the training is more specific to going longer again. So initially like the 100-mile distance, so the 160k's, and then adjusting again probably in 3 or so months to longer again, which will be the 231 kilometers. I'm looking at different programs online, different ultra runners that I follow through Instagram and Facebook, and apps that they have available, podcasts. I'm following them. I found Pillars podcast has been awesome, and their app is unreal, and really appreciate Dylan Bowman's expertise and advice that he gives, not directly to me, but to the followers of Pillars and the community of Pillars. Really welcoming community. It's been really good and really inspiring, really motivating too, the comments and video messages you get before runs. And so that's been good. And it's always handy to listen to the podcast. That's something I've started doing as well, more so, because you learn. And it's all about learning. As I said, the 231Ks is something I've never done before. I've never trained anyone to do before, and I haven't trained myself to do before. So it's all about learning, and the running community is really good and inclusive in the sense that everyone is willing to share details and things that work and don't work, and obviously they keep some things to themselves, especially the elite runners, because it's a competitive world and they're in the competition. But yeah, just really good to see things that didn't work and things that did work in races that have gone wrong, and if I can pick up some stuff that I haven't learned before, it's a win for me. And then I love sharing back too. It's great to see so many people in the Portland local area, including Lithgow and Willerowang and Cullen, Lidsdale, running. So many runners at the moment, and walkers as well, and that's fantastic. Again, it comes back to activity and heart disease and risk factors and looking after our health. And again, that's what it's about. If I can inspire people to get out there and have a go at running or have a go at being more active, it's fantastic, and we're going to make a difference slowly but surely in the ultimate overall picture of heart disease in Australia. And it's one we've got to get coming down. Too many people too often lose their lives to heart disease or lose loved ones to heart disease. And so this is my way of trying to make a difference. So look, I'm really excited for what's ahead. I'm really excited as we go into this coming week, because in 6 days' time I get to enter into the Sonder Monster, and that means then planning really starts to become in earnest, because it's real, it's happening. I'll hopefully have an entry, and it's sitting there. It's like, okay, 35 weeks, and we're counting it down. We've got to then organise, obviously, equipment, accommodation, all that sort of stuff. But that's still to come. At the moment, my focus is on training and raising the awareness of the Heart Foundation and heart disease. Everyone, thank you for your support. The 6 months so far has just blown my mind at the amount of support I'm getting. I keep saying it, but I truly mean it from the bottom of my heart. The donations that keep coming in, the signing up of the challenges. As I said, to get 46 people skipping when I was hoping for 10 to 15 is just unreal. Their comments, their best wishes I get on messages I get on Instagram and Facebook and in the street is just really, really good. And the interest people take in asking questions about the event, about my running, all that. And I want to try and cover it in a podcast one time too, the questions I do get asked, and try and answer some of the questions to share with everyone. If you do have any questions at any time, please reach out to me, whether it's in regards to what I'm doing or in regards to what you're doing. Maybe I can give you some advice or some motivation. I'd love to help out. Contact me. The details are below with email and Instagram and Facebook as well. Everyone, we're going to end the podcast there. As I said, it was just a perfect opportunity 6 months into the training to have a look back at what's happened so far, where I'm looking at heading, where we are on the journey, and how it all began. And again, I still, as I said, ask myself every week, how did I go from being up there in the mountains of the 6 Foot Track Marathon, cursing running, cursing what I was doing, thinking, never again, I'm done with this. I don't need to run 45 kilometers, to signing up for 231 kilometers. And I'm so excited about it, enjoying the journey so much. And that's something I'm really happy about and really proud about, because I can see glimmers of my old self coming back. And so that's a good thing. It's a real good thing. Everyone, as always, please have an awesome week. Make sure you do some activity, and whatever you do, however you do it, make sure you're doing it running with heart.